All right, we are here and we are ready to go. I'm Michelle Stinson Ross.
I'm Tina Schweiger.
And this is Feelings Matter brought to you by Mindful Appy. And I'm excited. I'm excited. I can barely sit in my seat. I am so excited. Why, you ask?
Why? I ask.
So, what you are currently watching and engaging in is the live version of Feelings Matter. What we have been doing for well over a month. We've actually been doing this for about 6 weeks, right, Tina?
Yes,
I
at
think we've
least.
been about 6
Planning
weeks.
it longer.
Mm-hmm. So once we have this conversation live with you guys, we turn it into a podcast. And as of 8 a.m. Central Time this morning, the first full episodes of the Feelings Matter podcast dropped. And that's why I'm excited. That's why I can barely sit in my seat. So, for those of you that love podcasts and you want to listen, Feelings Matter is currently available on Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. We are currently working on iHeartRadio and also Apple Podcasts. We will be there. We're going to get there. But for now, there's plenty of places to go subscribe, make sure you follow. And we made sure that we launched well for you guys. There has now been 3 episodes dropped this morning. So you guys have got lots to listen to once you spent some time with us today.
Gotta get caught up.
Gotta get caught up. So that's me. That's why I'm excited, which is really weird that I'm excited and we're talking about fatigue today. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this works, but we're gonna try.
Before we start, can I just say what I was listening to on NPR this morning? I mean, maybe you were hearing it. If you were listening to it, they were literally interviewing a woman who started a company in Washington State, outside of Seattle, to compost human bodies after they're dead. So I think we might be on trend to be just like discussing the difficult things.
Could very well be.
Everyone's ready.
So, I also want to remind you guys, as I see more people joining us and watching, please use the chat features. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want to chime into what we're talking about, use the chat. I can see it. We'll post it up and we'll talk about it. You guys can be a part of this conversation today. That's part of why we do this live. But let's start with, I am a writer, as some of you know quite well, and I love words. I just love words. And so, as we started talking about fatigue and the long-term impacts of COVID, I'm like, fatigue. This isn't just tired.
Fatigue.
One of the definitions I found was, it's a term used to describe an overall feeling of tiredness, lack of energy. It's not just feeling drowsy or sleepy or really even tired. When you're fatigued, you have no motivation, no energy. Sleepiness might be a symptom or an underlying factor of fatigue, but this goes way deeper. Has anybody ever heard the phrase bone weary? I feel like that's where we are right now. This is the type of fatigue that we're dealing with. Deep into our bones and our souls weary.
Yes.
How about you? What were you finding as we started just talking about the word fatigue?
I'm a bit analytical, oddly, but those of you who know me wouldn't be surprised. And there's that definition that you talked about, bone weary, tired. I mean, just chronic fatigue is a medical condition.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives light to the fact that it's not just I'm sleepy right now. It's like it stretches out for on and on. And here we are, a year plus into quarantine and COVID, and we call it COVID fatigue. So I did find that that's quite a term, and it does imply a couple things. It implies that people are fed up and maybe breaking the rules because they're tired of being in quarantine or dealing with COVID. It's not exactly that. I think fatigue is pretty accurate to the definition that Michelle just shared, which is it's just long-term tiredness. Sometimes the news stories will share I don't know, little spots about college parties and people going around without masks. And then a study that was commissioned by or it's actually a pre-press study that I found, is that people are actually not doing that. They are more likely to, 90% are complying. That, hands down, we're wearing our masks, we're following the rules, and we're complying. So the just the sense that fatigue, meaning that we're tired of it and we're escaping it, is, I think, a misinterpretation of the word. To get back to the feeling once we've cleared out our need to define it.
Well, really understanding what it is, that's all part of emotional awareness, right? That I'm aware that, okay, this isn't just me being tired. This isn't just me being frustrated. This is something that I'm experiencing over and over. And I never, because the stimulus is still there, the external factors that are causing me to feel this way continue to happen. That hasn't changed. And so I never feel like I have time to recover, which is why I feel like fatigue is the right word here, because we're still dealing with this. It hasn't stopped. It really hasn't. It's starting to change. It is getting better. Vaccines are rolling out. We have a much better understanding of how to treat COVID. So things are changing, but they're not changing either radically or quickly yet.
There's also the thing called the availability effect, which is heightened right now because we are restricted in who we're around. And what that means is that you judge things based on the information that you're exposed to readily. So think about what you're exposed to on the topic every day, and it will make a little bit more sense why it's hard to recover, because you can't really escape the topic.
True. Well, my day-to-day life is like that. So I avoid public transit, which means I don't go much further than where my little feet can carry me these days. I've gotten in the habit of not only double masking, but I put on my mask before I walk out my door. I do not touch it. I do not take it off of my face until I walk back in the door again. So that's a habit that is not going away until I can be vaccinated. And even when I'm vaccinated, I don't think I'm going to let go of that habit. I might actually get on the light rail once I've been vaccinated with my mask. But, I can't change those habits. And I'm not doing them just for me. I'm doing them to protect others around me as well. And that there's a bit of emotional labor involved in that, because I realize this isn't just about me, and I may be tired and I just want to take this silly mask off for 5 minutes, please, but I can't, because it's not just me. I feel the weight of the responsibility to maintain my safety protocols.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big burden, and it can be exhausting. Back to fatigue.
For sure.
So, I mean, do you want to segue into what we can do about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, what can we do? All right. It's like, yes, we've identified it. We are aware that we are feeling fatigued about this. What can we do?
Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge what it is. And this is not something anyone would have expected or predicted. Maybe there's somebody who disagrees with that. I don't know, but I feel it's a surprise. There's a lot of surprises that we get in life. Some of those surprises are good. Some of them are not so good. This is a surprise that has led to lots of loss and lots of sadness and lots of disappointment and pain. And these feelings are feelings that we really don't like experiencing as humans, if you
don't
will.
like experiencing. It takes a lot of energy. I mean, that is all of that is what is draining our energy, and it takes a lot to recover from that.
I know. There's a book that I love. It's called Radical Acceptance,
Ooh,
David
okay.
Kraft.
One more
And
time, the author's name.
David Kraft. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. A highly recommended book read to help cope with disappointment, sadness, pain, and loss. And the net takeaway of David Kraft's radical acceptance approach is that we want to push these feelings down. We want to not feel them. We just want them to go away. When we do that, what we end up doing, ironically, is reducing our ability to feel joy and happiness. Because what we end up doing is just pushing down these bad feelings at the expense of the good feelings. So it's like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you will. Accepting the feeling and acknowledging it. It's not as hard as it sounds, but it's an interesting concept that I think it's time to apply to our situation right now, and then apply to the others around us who are maybe suffering more than we are, and we can help.
Sure. It sounds like numbing ourselves to feeling is not a good idea. What we wind up doing is numbing ourselves to everything and not just the stuff that's uncomfortable.
Drinking is up. Speaking of numbing, I think I was watching Bill Maher the other night. It's like all of the bad things are kind of up, and we're all just tired of this. And so, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I don't know. Just crack open that bottle of wine, because what else am I doing?
Oh, well, I can make you laugh because right now in my apartment complex, there are evenings when you can get a contact high walking through the corridors.
Yeah, I bet you can, because that can help, but with a little bit too much, maybe it's just a little bit, it will numb you for sure. So we normally suppress them. We just want to. It's our nature. If we can retrain ourselves to deal with them, it would help us experience it fully. So what does it really mean? We talk about this a lot, just emotions and feelings matter. And just there's just this like talking about emotions and thinking about emotions. But what we have to remember is that they're in the body, and they're signals from the body to give your brain signals on what to do. So if you can think about, where is this fatigue in my body? Is it an emotional tiredness? Is it in my bones? What you said, bone tired. I love that phrase. Is it in my muscles? Is it my overall motivation? I feel fatigue just like sometimes just motivated to get up in the morning and get going. That can just show up as fatigue. So really,
I felt like there have been days when I felt like a heaviness on my chest, like I'm being weighed down by it.
Yeah, it's not my puppy sitting on my chest. Sorry. But if we don't acknowledge them, that's when the trouble can start. We cannot act on the emotions properly. And if we're not acknowledging them, they can drive us to act impulsively. Those impulsive behaviors of like, hey, I'm not just going to crack open one. I'm just going to do whatever I feel like, and I'm not even going to think about it. Those kind of behaviors can start damaging you physically and mentally, and they can make you more susceptible to a long-term mental illness. It can put you more at risk for something that's going to be harder or will require therapy or medication to get over. So pay attention is the short answer on radical acceptance, the first step there.
Well, you saying that, being able to modify behavior, I have to admit that, like, going back to the whole mask thing, I'm seriously kind of having an issue with that, because I frequently am in indoor corridors where there are signs all over the place where you have to wear a mask inside, and yet I see so many people with it not covering their nose, and that little anger monster starts to rise up, I want to like snap and go into mom mode.
Mm-hmm. I think they call that Karen.
Corridors.
Don't be a Karen. No, I think actually, so that's a really good, that anger that comes up when you see people not complying. But let's think about what's underneath that anger. What's driving it? Fear, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Fear for yourself, fear for them.
I'm doing everything I can. Can you people please do the same?
I know. Unfortunately, we can't control other people.
Nope. I can stay far away, though.
You can. And that's what you got to do. Hi there. I'm just going to walk far over here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, goodness. Oh.
Which seems very weird. So for those of you that may not know, I'm also an extrovert. So this loss of connection and feeling like right now, the safest thing I can do is to put distance between me and you. That is such a very counterintuitive thing for me to do. As an extrovert, that is the last thing I want to do. I want connection. I need connection. And to push everybody away it's been hard for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm an introvert and it's still hard. Oh man. But who is it harder for? I did find so Canada, love you Canadians.
Yay, connects.
We love Canada. Data science, Canada Research Chair in Data Science has published on pre-review website a research 12 weeks that she surveyed 50 questions and trying to find out who is more likely to suffer from mental health from COVID fatigue in this situation, looking at the economic factors, the familial factors, the physical health factors, all kinds of factors that you can imagine. And it came out with some pretty interesting summary. And I think this is a guide. I think it's not a list that you need to look and see if you check all off of, but if you fit into more one or more the other of these categories, pay attention to that and know that it might be harder for you than it is for others, or it may be easier for you than it is for others. Okay. Harder and easier, I'm translating the study, which is really having more odds of developing mental health problems as a result versus having lower odds, higher versus lower odds. So if you have higher odds, you're single, you've lost your job, you may have poor physical health, you may have trouble getting medical care or mortgage, and you have kids enrolled in school. Those 5 factors will increase your odds of not paying attention. If you're not paying attention, it could slip into depression. That fatigue can transform. So be careful if you fit any of those buckets. If you fit these other buckets,
identify with a few of those.
Yeah.
just a few of those.
Yeah, I know it's it's mixed, but if you fit into these other buckets, I'm going to suggest that you reach out to your friends who fit in the former ladder writer. My writer help me. In the former bucket.
I'm in the former category.
Okay. People with lower odds of developing the mental problems are obviously they live in a state that does not have a rapid increase in COVID. They're older. So that means they probably are more financially secure at a certain point in their life. Male. Interestingly, they're not white, have a Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, have a larger number of people or kids in the household, which to me is kind of an interesting thing because if you have kids enrolled in school, you kind of end up with a lot more kids in the household. So what? Maybe some cross correlations here would be interesting.
Multi-generational, possibly
family support. I take it as you're not lonely. I think that's the big thing. You've had a job in the last 7 days, so you're employed likely. You have confidence in the affordability of your food in the future, so you're food secure, and you have insurance. So if you check off those boxes, then I want you to put yourself in the I want to reach out and help others category. And if you're in the former boxes at all, I want you to receive the help.
And there's probably a lot of you that can go, wait a second, I identify with some in each category.
Yes.
You might be doing okay, and you need to make the effort to make sure others around you are okay, so you don't slip into not okay.
And the act of helping others is shown. I mean, you will feel better if you reach out and help others. So what does that really look like? Yeah. I have 4 things.
How do we pull this off?
I pull it off. 4 things. So after looking at radical acceptance, after looking at who's suffering more, after looking at our definitions of fatigue, here are the 4 things that I want you to do. If you're in that former category, I got that right. I'm dyslexic, so. Okay. 1, reach out to your single friends more often, especially if they're women. Reach out, send them a text. Let's schedule a Zoom. If they're single, they out time alone, just take up some of that time to be with them. That's thing 1, simply. Thing 2 is think about this radical acceptance. And the first step in that is simply acknowledging what is going on. So when you reach out to them, it's more like, hey, what's going on for you today? How are you feeling today? What did you do today? How is this impacting you today? Not necessarily a cry fest, or if they need a cry fest, by all means, be there for a cry fest if you can. Right. You're a wonderful person if you can hold space for somebody in a cry fest. But, just ask them, just talk about their day, see how they're doing. Third. So the second is to check in, see how they're doing, and maybe brainstorm. How might we cope? Come up with a couple ideas. Use that phrase. How might we? You'll be surprised what you get with that open-ended phrase. Donate to causes that support out-of-work frontline workers, because that job loss is a big thing and so many people are supporting it or suffering from it. And as a result, there are a lot of organizations that we will post in our show notes that you can donate to that are helping bartenders and waiters and cab drivers and, you name it. You can't work at home. Let's help those folks. 4th, if you are vaccinated, maybe took both of your vaccines, if the social guidelines are such that it makes sense for you, take someone's kids off their hands for a while. Some of those kids who are at home in little kids' school, just give those parents a break, because they got a little parenting fatigue, if you know what I mean. That. That's it.
That's actually pretty cool.
Good.
I want to call out something in particular. So reaching out to somebody else. Well, like I said, what feels fatiguing for me is that lack of connection. And it's not that I need a party. It's not that I need, and this is probably the same for a lot of people. One of the things I really discovered early on were the big Zoom hangouts where there were tons of people, large Zoom groups. Those did nothing at all for me.
No, what Michelle's saying is that any of her friends that are listening right now, you know who you are, just give her a call.
Right. The one-on-one conversations where time can actually be spent. I know that I'm being heard. I'm not just getting lost in the group. That even over a Zoom or a telephone call does create connection. There's a big difference between, let's just all pile into a Zoom together, and actually carving out and creating time for a one-on-one conversation. It does restore that sense of connection.
Sure does. Even just doing the podcast, it's nice.
It really has. It's kind of funny. I also just recently started working as a volunteer board member for a nonprofit here in St. Paul.
Aww.
And it was funny. This was a group call, but it was only like 4 or 5 people. And we were working through a problem. It was a board meeting. And having an adult conversation and feeling like by the end of that conversation we had accomplished something together was incredibly fulfilling. And
Yeah.
it kind of surprised me because the rest of the board has been doing this for a while. I'm the noob, and I'm like, I need to tell you guys that I really appreciated that. That
Oh,
that was beneficial to me at an emotional level. And so, I had no idea that's what was going to happen, but I was ready to accept it and acknowledge it and enjoy the heck out of that.
yeah. Heck yeah. Well, awesome. I hope we can find some ideas on how other people are finding ways to connect, and that will help alleviate some of this fatigue.
Certainly. So, as we wrap up, obviously, if you're watching this either live or you're watching the replay, by all means, leave your suggestions, your questions, your comments in the chat. We want to hear from you. There
Mhm.
are also ways to reach out to us off of the social channels. You can reach us at our business home. I think info@mindfulappy.com will probably work, right, Tina?
Definitely social and you can always email Tina at. I would love some questions. I gotta tell you, there's nothing I really enjoy more than trying to research somebody who's already found the answer to your question. And I will go find it if I can and maybe look in a couple different areas and pull some different things together and synthesize something cool. So, and about feelings, it's mysterious. So I am ready to help you unravel it.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope that maybe this helped you feel a little bit better today.
Maybe let us know.